Yup, that's right, it's actually real. The Nintendo Switch 2 is not a figment of our imagination, and we just learned pretty much everything there is to know about it. From stuff that was explicitly mentioned in the Direct, stuff that was hidden in the Direct, and stuff from Nintendo's websites and press releases, here is everything you need to know about the hardware for the Nintendo Switch 2. In terms of the graphics, there is a lot to talk about, and there's nowhere better to start than the most notable upgrade we saw, which is 4K support. After what feels like years of rumors and speculation, it is confirmed the Nintendo Switch 2 will indeed support 4K, which is a massive upgrade. A lot of you in the comments are probably thinking that this is kind of unnecessary. Even now, most people don't have 4K TVs. However, think of this as Nintendo future-proofing the Switch 2. The Switch 1 lasted for like 7 or 8 years. If the Switch 2 lasts for even like 5 or 6, by the end of the console's life, if it wasn't in 4K, people would be dying. So this is definitely a good thing, and this move essentially puts Nintendo on par with the rest of modern consoles, which is definitely a rarity to say. They have genuinely future-proofed this console, and that makes a lot of sense when you look at the price. The Switch 2 will retail for $449 US or $499 for the Mario Kart bundle, which is a 50% increase from the Switch. With that being said, for how much more this costs, you are essentially getting a modern console that's cheaper than, well, other modern consoles available, and it also offers handheld support. Speaking of the Switch 2's portability, in handheld mode, this will support 1080p full HD at 120 FPS. Honestly, having this high of a frame rate, especially in handheld mode, is definitely a surprise coming from Nintendo. Again, they are usually not this modern at all with their consoles. These improved graphics and frame rate can also be applied to select Switch games in Switch 2 enhanced versions, such as Metroid Prime 4, which offers a 4K support in quality mode and 120 frames per second in performance mode. Games like Breath of the Wild, Tears of the Kingdom, and Pokemon Legends ZA also get noticeable graphic increases. However, these Nintendo Switch 2 edition games will require an additional purchase, even if you already own them on Switch 1. On top of that, certain Switch 1 games will receive, quote, free updates to improve playability on the Nintendo Switch 2 system. On Nintendo's website, we can see the games that will be getting this update, or at least the ones that they're choosing to show off, with those games being ARMS, yeah sure, Captain Toad Treasure Tracker, Super Mario Odyssey, Super Mario 3D World plus Bowser's Fury, Clubhouse Games, both Link's Awakening and Echoes of Wisdom, Game Builder Garage, New Super Mario Bros. U Deluxe, Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, and Big Brain Academy Brain vs. Brain. Now, for games like Super Mario 3D World plus Bowser's Fury, Link's Awakening, and Echoes of Wisdom, I completely understand why these games are chosen. All 3 of those games suffer from pretty serious frame rate hitches, whether you're in Bowser's Fury or just, well, in pretty much any part of Echoes of Wisdom. Getting an increased frame rate here for free as an update is going to be super nice. However, I'm way more interested in stuff like Clubhouse Games or New Super Mario Bros. U Deluxe. Those games already ran at a rock steady 60 frames per second with a solid resolution. Of course, it can now always be bumped up to 4K 120, but it seems like there are other games that could definitely be using this sort of boost more. I'm looking at you, Age of Calamity. Moving back to the screen on the console itself, this upgraded LCD screen includes HDR10 support, which basically makes for far more vibrant colors. TV mode will also support HDR as well. Moving on to the console's hardware itself, the console has the same thickness now, but also boasts a 7.9-inch screen, which is a lot bigger. Obviously, this screen is LCD and not OLED, but especially considering the screen can now support HDR, I doubt a lot of people are going to notice this. Yes, it's LCD and not OLED, but you're getting a vivid LCD screen with HDR with a way higher pixel count and frame rate. So this is definitely not the same screen from the original Switch by any means. The Switch also now has clearer audio from its built-in speakers, on top of offering what they're calling 3-dimensional sound, which is essentially like a Dolby surround sound type thing. On top of that, the Switch 2 now has a built-in microphone, which offers noise canceling even without headphones. We did kind of hear what this sounds like in the Direct, and to be honest, it sounded really good, but obviously it remains to be seen exactly how high quality this noise canceling can truly end up being. There's also an extra USB-C port for charging and improved ventilation. As for the game cards, the card reader is basically identical to the Switch's, but the cartridges are now distinguished by a new red color. They also just kind of shadow announced this on their website, but Nintendo will now apparently offer game key cards. Basically, for some games like Rocket League, when you bought them physically, all you would get is a digital code in the case. Now you get a physical cartridge that will download the game on your system after you insert the card. However, you still need to have the game key card in the console to play it, so basically it's kind of the worst of both worlds. You have to have a physical cartridge, but you also have to have the storage on your Switch 2 to download it. Honestly, Honestly, to me, it just makes more sense to buy the game digitally, unless you're a collector or just want to get someone a physical gift for like Christmas. Speaking of storage for your digital games, the Switch 2 will launch with 256 gigabytes. This is a much needed and much welcomed increase from the 32 you got on the base Switch. How did we live through 7 or 8 years of 32 gigabytes of internal storage? I don't know, but 256 is going to be a lot nicer, especially considering games like Cyberpunk and Elden Ring are likely going to take up a lot of that storage. Moving on to the battery of the console, Nintendo's saying it would last anywhere from 2 to 6.5 hours depending on the game you're playing. This is technically a downgrade from the OLED, but like again, this is a full HD 120 FPS console when in handheld mode, so it does kind of make sense. Lastly, the new kickstand is a huge upgrade, which is definitely necessary if you consider the original Switch's horrible kickstand, and then imagine that with an even larger console. Even comparing this to the OLED though, it seems to be a lot more effective while also just being quite sleek. The Joy-Cons have now been officially rebranded as Joy-Con 2. This doesn't just seem like lip service from Nintendo though, these lovable little controllers have gotten a fairly significant upgrade. We already knew some of this stuff beforehand, but on top of being larger, these controllers now magnetically attach to the Switch and feature much larger SL and SR buttons for single Joy-Con use. And they're also made of steel now. The Joy-Con 2 now offered larger sticks, and Joy-Con drift seems to have been addressed, given the previous Switch 2 reveal trailer, but they didn't mention this in the Direct for obvious reasons. Additionally, we see them tease HD Rumble 2, which is obviously an enhanced version of HD Rumble. This was shown off in the Nintendo Switch 2 Welcome Tour trailer. The Joy-Con 2 also have their own charging grip, which will cost $35, and a set of 2 Joy-Con wheels, which will cost $20. The next thing we've got to talk about is the brand new C button. People speculated about this for a long time, and there were certainly some bizarre predictions. The answer was the most obvious one after all. The C button appears to be entirely dedicated to Game Chat, which is a brand new addition to your Switch Online service. They talked about this for a long time, but it's essentially like Discord or Skype on the Switch, now offering voice chat, screen sharing, and even the option to use a camera through the Nintendo Switch 2 camera accessory. Now, on the website page for the Nintendo Switch 2 camera, they clarify that you can use any USB-C compatible camera, which is super nice, but yeah, it will be nice to be able to plug in any compatible USB-C camera rather than Nintendo forcing you to use the Switch 2 accessory. That would have been quite annoying. This entire voice chat system is definitely something that we've wanted for a long time, so I'm very glad to know we're no longer left having to use a mobile app for just voice chat. Another big update coming to the Joy-Con is something we basically already knew about, but it is finally technically confirmed, and that is mouse support. Being able to use the Switch 2's Joy-Con as a mouse is so huge, and we've already seen this in a few games, such as the new Switch 2 Welcome Tour, Mario Party, and even Metroid Prime 4. Specifically, obviously, the Nintendo Switch 2 edition of that game. I'm actually so hyped to see how this is incorporated in not just old games, but new games as well, especially with that new Drag X Drive trailer, which seems to heavily use mouse controls. Drag X Drive was this little wheelchair basketball game we saw, and it genuinely looks sick. When these guys dunked, I lost my mind. The Joy-Con 2 will also have a new strap specifically for mouse support. These will be included within the console, just like the Joy-Con strap were with the original Switch, and will also be sold separately for $12.99. Moving on from the Joy-Con to the Pro Controller. This thing looks sweet. The Nintendo Switch 2 Pro Controller has an upgraded look with the top trim being white and has new upgraded sticks like the new Joy-Con. The Pro Controller also features HD Rumble 2 and also includes a headphone jack at the bottom, which is another welcome addition, as the Switch 1 Pro Controllers didn't have a headphone jack, so the only way to use headphones when you were docked was having a cable long enough that could reach the dock, which, I don't know, for most people I feel like that is not a thing. Additionally, the new Pro Controller offers paddles on the handles, like the Xbox Elite Series controllers, which are now called the GL and GR buttons, with G standing for grip, I would assume. The new Pro Controller also has the C button, and this is all retailing for $79.99. Moving on from the Pro Controller though, let's talk about one more controller, and that is the GameCube controller. Obviously, this can be used in the new GameCube NSO app, but I would also be very shocked if this was not usable in like every other game. This controller is exclusive to Nintendo Switch Online expansion pack members, and has been updated to fit the Switch 2, even including that new C button. Moving on to the dock, there is some nice new stuff here to talk about. First of all, the dock will have USB support and LAN support, just like the OLED, but it's also now been fitted with a fan, which just seems like an obvious choice to prevent this console from going to the moon with a 4K output. Additionally, as I mentioned before, the Switch 2 will launch alongside its own dedicated camera, which can be plugged into the top of the console through its second USB-C port. This Nintendo Switch 2 official camera will retail at $50, and there isn't a ton they've said about it. It has a wide lens that can be adjusted and automatic light lighting, but we don't even have the aspect ratio. And judging by the actual footage we saw, yup, this is definitely a $50 camera. We'll definitely have to see how more games implement this in the future, because we've really only seen it in the Switch 2 version of Mario Party Jamboree, but it seems like its primary use is the new game chat service. Additionally, on the camera section of the website, Nintendo does confirm that you can use any USB-C compatible camera, not just the Nintendo official one, which is so nice. There will definitely be some cheaper and probably higher quality third-party camera attachments, so if that's something you're interested in, maybe hold off on the Nintendo official one for a bit after launch. Moving on to a few more additional accessories, Nintendo has announced a new official carrying case that's obviously upgraded for the new dimensions of the console. It costs $35 and includes a screen protector, obviously for the new screen size, and a cleaning cloth. There's also another bigger case, which retails for $80, that can hold the dock, systems, Joy-Cons, cables, and a few games. The new AC adapter has its own brick, which is also included with the console and can be purchased separately for $30. The AC adapter actually detaching from the cable itself is so nice, because the original Switch had an AC adapter that was like permanently attached to the cable that was attached to the USB-C thing you would plug into the dock. That got really annoying really quick, and this is just so much better. It's more modular, it's better for the consumer. Additionally, you can buy a separate dock, which includes this AC adapter and an HDMI cord. Again, this is basically the exact same thing we got for Switch 1, and this retails for $110. Continuing on about additional accessories, this announcement may disappoint a lot of people. The Switch 2 can only use microSD express cards. These cards can be between 5 to 8 times faster than traditional microSD cards, and it kind of makes sense for the Switch 2 to use these since it's a way faster console. Obviously, it sucks having to buy a new microSD card for this console, but I think the speeds will ultimately justify this. So far, Nintendo has announced a partnership with Samsung, and there will be a 256GB microSD express card available with Mario theming. They did partnerships like this for the original Switch, and it just kind of adds up that they're continuing to do this. And again, for those who don't want to buy a new SD card immediately, the Switch 2 will be 256GB of internal storage at launch, which is 8 times the amount of storage that the Switch 1 launched with. Finally, I just want to talk about the pricing. You've probably noticed this as I've talked about the console and accessories, but there definitely has been a price increase across the board here. This makes sense just because, you know, inflation exists, but on top of that, for how much of an upgrade this console is, $449 is not a horrible deal at all. Again, this console now competes with the Xbox Series X and PS5, has a lower price point despite being newer, and offers handheld support. I feel like you are going to get the console that you paid for. Let's not forget that the Switch lifespan lasted over 8 years while already featuring an outdated chipset at launch. This console is genuinely future-proofed, and despite the higher price point, I think this is worth it when you consider that we might get another 8 years out of this console. I am perfectly fine with paying $449 for this console, however my biggest price gripe is actually the games themselves. I expected a slight jump in game price, like how Tears of the Kingdom was $70, but Mario Kart World is apparently going to be $80 digitally and $90 physically, which is really steep. It's kind of ballsy for Nintendo, which is usually a more family-oriented company when it comes to pricing. For them to charge even more for games than both Sony and Microsoft, especially considering that Nintendo games basically never go on sale, this seems a little insane. If you're paying $90 for a physical game, you basically get 2 games for the price of 3 Switch games, and honestly, this is a shocking increase. I think we're really gonna have to see how huge these games actually are, on top of how consistently they price them, since we already know the new DK game will be a bit cheaper already. Again, we really have to see, but I'm planning on buying, obviously, a lot of Switch 2 games, so if $90 is just the new normal now, this will basically kill my wallet. That is everything you might have missed about the hardware itself for the Nintendo Switch 2. If there's stuff we missed, let us know down in the comments below, and while you're there, drop a comment because I really want to know, what was your favorite announcement from this Direct? Mine's probably Mario Kart World, which our analysis of will be on the screen right now or as soon as it's up. Thank you guys so much for watching, and make sure to hit the subscribe button if you're excited for Switch 2 because we got so much more coverage for you. I'm Thomas from the Switch Stop signing off. Peace.